Winners. We have another episode of Tee to Green. This is the last golf tournament on the PGA Tour on the West Coast of the year. This is a tournament played at Riviera Country Club, the Northern Trust Open. This is basically in West LA, just north of Santa Monica, close to the Pacific Ocean. This is definitely one of the stronger fields of the West Coast swing and really of the whole year, just for your traditional PGA Tour tournament that's not really a major championship or part of the not a World Golf Championship event as well. So very strong field here at Riviera before we move down to Florida for a few tournaments there. So anyways, details about Riviera Country Club. This is a par 71. It tips out at 7,349 yards. This means there are 3 par 5s. There's also a drivable par 4 as well. These 4 holes, let's go through them just really quick. Hole number 1 is the first par 5 right out of the gate. This is a straight downhill tee shot, and it is very short, 503 yards. There are a ton of eagles on this hole. There's you might see as many as 30, even like 40 eagles on this hole, pending what the conditions are like. But in any case, the longest hitters will honestly be hitting driver wedge into this, and this is just it's fun for daily fantasy players to watch because we care about those eagles. So this is the first hole. It's as straightforward as it looks. Hole number 10 is the short par 4. This is one of my favorite holes on the entire PGA Tour. It is only 315 yards, but it is an extremely difficult golf hole. Why is that? This picture doesn't exactly do it justice, but in any case, this is one of the smallest greens on the PGA Tour, especially toward the back portion of the green, where it is extremely narrow, and there are bunkers on both sides of the green. And so in any case, most of the shorter hitters will end up hitting a drive with a long iron utility club, so to speak. They want to get this ball around 75 yards, 80 yards out. They want to go left of these sand traps that you see, or they want to go just over them, but still be able to hit like a 3/4 wedge into it with distance control. A lot of the longer hitters still think, they're awesome, and a lot of long ball hitters do end up going for the screen, and sometimes they can get up and down pending where the pin's at. But sometimes you'll see people just miss this green, and they end up making double bogey, and that's not an exaggeration. So there will be a few eagles here. There won't be many. You could probably count on one hand how many there will be, but some of the long hitters will get a few eagles here. The very next hole, hole 11, is the second par 5 on the course. This is a longer hole, 583. It pretty much plays how it looks. It's a very tight, narrow fairway. There is a little creek or ravine, if you will, that cuts in the middle of the fairway. It doesn't really come into play that much, in my opinion. And in any case, this is a hole. There are a couple of the longer hitters will eagle it, maybe about 5 eagles or so on average per year. And then the last hole that we can eagle is, I think it's number 17, and it is number 17. And 590 yards. This is the longest hole in the course. It requires 2 big shots to put you in position for a possible birdie. There will get a couple eagles here, but it is this is the toughest hole to eagle. I'll just put it that way. As this description says, it's 2-tier green that slopes back to front. It makes all downhill putts quite difficult. And that way, when people do hit driver 3-wood into it, they often that ball will roll behind the hole and then have a tough putt coming back. So in any case, just wanted to throw that out there. Those are your 4 possible eagle holes. The first hole, everyone's going to eagle, and then the next 3 are only going to be for the longer hitters, but there's only going to be a few that go out there, so I wouldn't put a huge emphasis on this. And the reason why is because Riviera in general, for how the course plays, it is, for the most part, narrow fairways. You could particularly see it here on the first hole. This is just the best photo I can use as an example. Not all holes and fairways are like this, but they're fairly narrow fairways. And then most of the holes are heavily tree lined. And so when you miss the fairway, you are often in thick rough and you're in jail guarded by the thick trees. And it's very difficult to make par, let alone birdie. And so there are also the greens in general are relatively small in comparison to other golf courses. And I would say the greens are not extremely difficult, but they're fairly tricky as well. And so some course history here is good and some course knowledge as far as being able to putt well here. So that's basically how I would, in basic terms, describe Riviera for us. So in terms of the stats, what we want to look at, and before I just quickly get into the stats, take each of these stats with a grain of salt because we still don't have that much data to work on for the 2015-16 portion of the season. Remember, a lot of players still haven't played that many events on the PGA Tour. And not only that, there was the break around the holidays. Most players took at least a month and a half off, maybe more. And so sometimes when you're looking for players who have good stats, sometimes they might be better stats from October, November in the easier fields. And then as of late, they may not be doing quite as well. And also, most of the previous courses we've seen on tour have had, in general, much wider fairways, more friendly fairways. So keep that in mind as well, that the courses have just in general been different, and we still don't have that much data to go on from a sample size perspective. So take each stat with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, the stats we do want to look at are your basic strokes gained tee to green, probably the most popular stat in daily fantasy golf. It's one of the best ones to look at just in general every week. Second is driving accuracy. This is, I would probably take with the least amount of emphasis, only in that there's just not that much data to go off of in terms of driving accuracy. Although if you notice somebody who has really been missing a lot of fairways as of late and has been playing in tournaments like the Waste Management Phoenix Open, the Hyundai, where the fairways are in particular fairly wide and friendly, that is kind of a little bit of a bad sign here, because missing the fairways there are not nearly as big of a deal as they are here. And if you're missing the fairways at like a place like Kapalua or some of the other courses that have much wider fairways, that means you're really offline with your targets. Proximity to the hole, in particular with mid to long irons, because a lot of this course is, again, 7,349 yards. And there are some short holes on this course as well. And that's 7,349 yards is about average or a little bit on the lengthy side, not average length, and a little bit over average in terms of length. But it being a par 71 and the fact that we have some shorter holes on this course, there are definitely going to be a lot of longer par 4s on this track. So it's definitely important to know who's hitting the ball well, not just your basic greens and regulation, because that can be misleading, but proximity to the hole is definitely a good thing to look at. And then in that, approaches from 150 to 200 yard range really is probably where you're going to look at, maybe in particular. Again, sample size is a little bit of an issue, but you can take a look at that. Scrambling is another thing. I mentioned these greens are a lot smaller, and the rough can be pretty thick around these greens. So people who are scrambling well generally have just good overall short games is very important here as well. And then if you're finding a lot of matches, so to speak, things that you're finding good stats for a certain guy with the things I just mentioned, and if he's a longer hitter, that is kind of a bonus for, I mentioned a few of the holes are only going to be possible. Few of the holes are only going to be possible for an eagle for longer hitters. And so if he's a longer hitter, that's a nice little bonus just to kind of throw that in there. Okay. Let's go to the picks here. We're just going to rattle off a bunch of names here. Did not do very well last week. A lot of people didn't do well last week. That was a crazy leaderboard. It's a fun finish watching Mickelson coming down to the wire with Vaughn Taylor. Really tough break for Mickelson. Couldn't get it done, but at the same time, very happy for Vaughn Taylor. That's really good for him. He hadn't won in a long time, and very good guy. I'm glad for him. But in any case, DFS-wise, we're going to do a little bit better this week. As far as the picks go, it was a really bizarre leaderboard. Okay, so start at the top. Hideki Matsuyama, 11,100. In his two tournaments here, he's finished 23rd and 4th. He's having a great year overall, and he fits this course very well. Justin Rose, 10,800. A lot of experience here. He's made 8 of 9 cuts playing this tournament, and he's playing really well this season. His stats aren't the best thing in the world, but at the same time, he's also playing well in the European Tour. And that is a quick point I should remind you that in terms of European Tour players, when you're looking up these different stats, keep in mind that European Tour players, or just European players in general, often are playing European Tour events as well. And those stats on PGAtour.com or anything you see on DraftKings as far as top 10s or how their finishes are, they're only factoring in PGA Tour events. The only kinds of tournaments you are going to see on both the PGA Tour website and the European Tour website are majors. That's pretty much what you're going to see. Like the British Open, stuff like that. So in any case, keep that in mind. So next pick, Sergio Garcia, 10,100. A lot of people haven't talked about Sergio in a long time, but he's quietly continuing just to play great golf, and just not many people know about it. No, he hasn't been winning events, but he keeps playing really solid golf and keeps putting himself near the top of the leaderboards. And a lot of people haven't heard about him because he hasn't been playing on the PGA Tour much, or if at all. He hasn't played on the PGA Tour in 2016, I should say. So, but in this tournament, he's made 8 of 9 cuts here. 6 times he's been in the top 20. 3 times he's been 6th or better. And then you take a look at the last 3 years he's been here: 4th, 13th, and 4th. all very good finishes for somebody at 10,100. And again, this is a very strong field, and we have players priced up to a little over 13 grand with Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy, and I really don't think you're going to be getting that much of an advantage picking a guy like Spieth or McIlroy. And there's, and again, this is a quick reminder to everybody that I'm listing a bunch of guys here. This doesn't mean everyone I don't mention is a bad pick necessarily. I'm just giving you kind of my top guys as we go down the list. I really like a balanced salary method for this week in particular, just because of what kind of a field we've got going on here from top to bottom. And I don't think, I think the middle price players are there's a lot of the top players are in this tournament. I don't really like how they line up for this tournament in particular in comparison to some other courses. I really like the middle core of this field, and then the bottom, there seems to be a pretty big drop off from the middle to the bottom in particular in this event. So this is a balanced salary method week for me. So, but again, in any case, if you're making a ton of GPP lineups, use all the stats I've been telling you about, and then verifying with some of my picks. Pick some guys that you like that I've got. And then if you find some people that I may not have mentioned that correlate to some of the stats I've mentioned or some things you found on your own, go with that as well. So in any case, we'll continue on. Bill Haas at 9,200. He has finished 12th, 1st, 3rd, and 23rd here from 2011 to 2014. Haas's stats correlate very well to this golf course historically. Matt Kuchar at 8,600, just way too cheap. He's too good of a player for that. I know he hasn't been at the top of the leaderboard really this year, but I just think he's simply underpriced. He's too good of a player. I see no signs of him statistically to being bad here. He's Mr. Consistency, and he's made 8 of his 9 cuts here that he's played. Let's see here. Kevin Na at 8,300. He blew up a lot of people's lineups last week with that 79 on Saturday. I'm willing to look the other way on that one because the Pebble Beach Pro-Am is a little bit of a gimmicky event with 3 different courses and playing with the celebrities and all that. And it was pretty windy there as well. And I'm just going to look the other way on that one, on that 79, and say, nah, in 12 appearances here, he's made the cut only 7 times, but he's had a few top 10s. He's having a really fantastic year, and his stats really do correlate well with this golf course. 3 guys here in the upper 7,000 range. Jason Duffner at 7,800 and Danny Lee at 7,800. Great stats and fits for this golf course. I still think Danny Lee is too cheap at 7,800. And quite frankly, Duffner, I think he's back on the rise here. It's not like Duffner's, 37 years old or something like that. We have to keep that in mind. Duffner really, in terms of age, is in the prime of his career. So I think Duffner's on his way back up despite a little bit of a downfall last year. And Luke Donald at 7,500. We haven't heard from Luke in a long time. Luke is somebody that you'll see it's talked about quite a bit in the media on the European side. He is somebody that has really committed greatly to his game at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And he's quietly playing a lot better as of late. In his history here, he has 13 appearances here. I really like that. 6 top 20s and 3 in the top 6. So, and he fits this course well, a little bit more of a shorter hitter and a ball striking guy. So, in any case, we like Luke Donald. Some other guys here down the stretch. John Hutt, 7,400, having a very good season and great fit for this course. Fabian Gomez at 7,000. Sort of the same thing. The really good stats overall in general, and then he fits this course well. And his 2 missed cuts recently were at courses that really didn't necessarily fit his game, and this more correlates to what his game is at Riviera Country Club. Last 2 guys, Mark Hubbard at 6,800. Great stats and fin. The only downside for Hubbard is that he hasn't played here before. That's the only knock I can find on him. But really, I think everyone around 7,000 or cheaper in this field, either I can find usually at least a handful of things that I don't really like about him coming into this event. But Hubbard, really the only knock I can find on him is the fact that he hasn't played here before. And is even though I do think history here is going to help you, it's not like a necessary requirement by any means either. And then Chad Campbell at 6,500. He's played here every year since 2002. I'm kind of going on the flip side here for experience. He's only missed 4 cuts here since 2002. Granted, he hasn't been playing here quite as well as of late, but the stats really correlate well for him here at Riviera, and he's had a nice little resurgence here in the last half a year to a year. So those are all the guys I've got for you as far as the picks go. Again, there are probably more guys out there you should be including, and again, I'm encouraging you to use some of this information to go out and find some of your own picks. And if you're making a bunch of different GPP lineups, I'm just giving you kind of like my top picks as I go down through the salary list and the kind of strategies I would like to use, and I think you should use as well. I will have all this. If you didn't catch all these names and all this information, I'll have all this in the PGA forum. We're having much better discussions in the forum as of late over the last few weeks. We're looking to continue with that and improve on that, of course. And that is it. So if you like this video or any of the other videos, please remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and Twitch. And of course, you can follow me at Nick Juskewycz, and you can follow DailyFantasyWinners.com, of course, at DFantasyWinners. All right, everyone. Thanks. Good luck.